evening and welcome to tonight's Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. I am Oyin Okpala. Let's begin. Ambazonia, with years of conflict, have left deep marks on everyday life of the people, reshaping communities, disrupting education, and straining trust between civilians and authorities. From Bamenda and surrounding towns to more remote villages, indigenous reports consistently describe a population navigating uncertainty where fear and fatigue coexist, with a persistent longing for stability and peace. Despite the hardship, voices from the ground also reveal a quiet but enduring resilience. Community-led peace efforts, church initiatives, and informal dialogues continue to emerge, often driven by local traders and leaders determined to keep channels of communication open. These grassroots efforts reflect a shared understanding that lasting peace cannot be imposed from outside, but must be cultivated within the lived realities of those most affected. It is against this backdrop that recent developments following the Pope's visit are being closely watched. For many, the visit is not seen as an isolated event, but as a potential catalyst in a long and complex process of reconciliation, one that will require sustained commitment, structured follow-up, and the active participation of communities across the whole of Ambazonia. All these and more would come on tonight's Undaunted, but first, let's get the prime headlines. Tonight, we take a look at a cry for justice and survival as President Sako urges unity and global action after Pope's visit to Bamenda. Pupils in Akwaya still lacks basic amenities, staying in leaked roof for classes. Also tonight, Principal Alleges French Cameroon soldiers abused students in Ambazonia, files formal complaint. Pope's visit sparks long-term peace roadmap for Cameroons. High stakes at the UN, Mark Stoll joins race for global leadership, and rising tension is on the African scene, while the global scene says that Donald Trump issues Iran's ultimatum as war fallout hits Africa. Now let's get the news in full briefings. The President of the Federal Republic of Ambazonia, President Sako, has called for sustained resistance and increased humanitarian support following the recent visit of Pope Leo XIV to Bamenda. Speaking at a federal humanitarian draft event in the Midland Zone on April 18th, President Sako described the gathering as a defining moment for unity and renewed commitment to what he termed the Ambazonian struggle. He emphasized that the Pope's visit carried deep significance, noting that the pontiff's remarks showed the need for justice, truth, and dialogue in addressing the ongoing war. According to President Sako, these statements align with the long-standing position of Ambazonian leaders who advocate for a negotiated negotiated resolution, I beg your pardon. He criticized attempts by some actors to misrepresent the war, insisting that the war has political roots and should not be reduced to mere criminality. He maintained that armed resistance emerged as a response to actions by the central government. Showing the humanitarian toll, President Sako pointed to thousands of deaths, mass displacement, and the destructions of villages and schools across affected areas. He urged the international community to recognize the scale of the crisis and support efforts towards internationally mediated dialogue. He also called on institutions such as the United Nations and the Vatican to take a more active role in facilitating peace, warning against narratives that downplay the severity of the situation. The address placed strong emphasis on mobilizing financial support for humanitarian efforts. President Sako appealed to Ambazonians both at home and in the diaspora to contribute to relief initiatives, stressing that such support remains vital for communities impacted by the war. Reaffirming his administration's openness to the dialogue, he insisted that justice must be central to any lasting peace. He further called for improved coordination, stronger communication, and sustained advocacy among supporters. The war in southern Cameroons, which began in 2016, has since developed into a prolonged war, with groups seeking independence, while government forces continue to give efforts to preserve territorial integrity. All right, a need for humanitarian aid. And of course, I'm very certain that when the Pope came around, he would have seen the difference. And he would have seen that truly, the people he would have seen in Bamenda and its environment would need a whole lot of aid. Not to talk of those, the refugees, those in the ID camps, and all of those in neighboring countries that are seeking for help. We know that the Department of Women Affairs, they do a lot of fundraising to take care of those who have been displaced and those who are seeking refuge outside Ambazonia. But according to President Sako, that is not enough and can never be enough. There is need for international mediation. There is need for humanitarian aid that would come in from across the globe. All right, this is where we'll begin tonight's Undaunted. Of course, Barrister Mbeseha, our in-house analyst, is here to pump in some reviews and analysis to start this week. How are you, Barrister? Good evening.
Good evening to you, and thank you for having me at the beginning of the week.
Yes, please. So let's start with this. Let's start with this communique that the president had concerning the visit of the Pope. Last week it was the most trending thing across the media. For we here, we wanted to see how others, neighboring French Cameroon would have played their role in talking about the war. We saw that everyone, played what they had to play. And for once, they didn't deny that there was no war. And so that leads us to the fact that there is a war. And when there is a war, there is need for humanitarian aid. Right? There is need for humanitarian aid. And the president has said, look, the world, you need to come together to help the people. There is need for aid. How would you rate this communique that we try to analyze this night?
Well, the president's speech was, and it is still very, very crucial, because it comes at a moment that something happened very unusually. For the past 2-3 weeks, or even a month, we've been dwelling on the papal visit. And all Ambazonians in different groups have focused on the papal visit. The Pope is come and gone. The Pope has delivered the message he came for. And then he's left us. Where do we stand? What were we expecting from the Pope? We're expecting the Pope to bring our light, our problem, to the front line of world events, to showcase our case to the world at large, and to those people who are human rights minded, to those people who are freedom fighters, right to self-determination minded. It's come and gone. And so what do we have to do? What do we expect to do? If the Pope has successfully done this to the world, we should say thank you, Papa, for Roma. We did your job. We expect, what things do we expect? We expect that some action should take place. How soon we could be it? It could be a month, in 2 weeks. But some action must take place by international community, be it by the Vatican, the head of the state that the Pope hates, or some other organizations. Something might happen. And so, in preparation for something to happen, because of the Pope's visit, what are we called to do as Ambazonians? That brings us to what the President said. You know, before the President said that, I've read a few people on social media calling for an all-Anglophone conference, notably from Mr. Simon Munzu and Agwambala and others. So yes, that's the right to free speech. But we all know the history of all Anglophone conference. It could take place, it may be in 2 months, if not 2 years, because they have been calling for that since 2019. It has not taken place. But shall the events that follow the Pope's visit wait for us to hold an all Anglophone conference to do what we want to do? The answer is no. Events will not wait for us. We have to wait for the events to come. And so if they have to come this night, what do we do as Ambazonians? He has called for unity of purpose. Ambazonia that want to return to that British Southern Cameroon politically was a multi-party system. Everybody had a right to his or her own view. They campaigned as political parties, but some political parties were stronger than others. They won the elections. Some got their own votes, fewer than others. That is what victory meant in Southern Cameroon. Victory meant where you went to the polls, for example, in 1959. How many seats did you win? As of 1959, there were only 26 seats in the Southern Cameroon House of Assembly. But all the parties went in. CPC and CPNC went in. The UNDP went in. The OK went in. And all this fought for the vote. And they got their own share of the vote. And so, but who emerged was the KNDP of Foncha. That's what we talk about, Foncha all the time. When he emerged in that manner, the rest fell behind him. And so he found that unity in the Fumban Conference. The Fumban Conference comprised everybody, even those who had won only one seat in the National Assembly. They were all there. For example, in Fumban, there was the OK of Late Tumeza. They had only won one seat in the whole assembly, but their place was recognized. There was Indele, who had won fewer seats. His place was recognized. And so when President Sako calls for unity of purpose right now, he has not forgotten, we've not lost sight that in this struggle up to this point, there are so many groups around there. Everybody postulating for Ambazonia. But there comes a time that if we have to confront the issue of Ambazonia together, we have to acknowledge leadership. We're not going to go back to the polls to vote. Even the so-called All-Anglophone conference, not everybody will attend. If you organize one in London today, not everybody will go there. If you organize one in Yaoundé or Oboye, no one will go there, not everybody will go there. So we have the parameters of judgment of who is actually in the leadership in terms of the groups that postulate for this thing. How do we judge them? We judge in terms of what is their vision to attaining Southern Cameroon, the goal that we have, Southern Cameroon freedom, independence, whatever you call it. What is the strategy? What is the structure put in place by each of these groups struggling around? And so we judge by those parameters. Nobody will doubt that the government of President Sako in exile is in the leading position. Hate him or like him, that is a fact. And there are pointers to that. The struggle has gone on for 9 years, for example. We have transitioned from the IG, from Sako, from interim government to government of Ambazonia in exile. While we trying to struggle to restructure, we are trying to restore the government of frontier, the government that was destroyed, and along with it, the institutions. This is the only group, call it a group, that has tried to reestablish the institutions that were in 1961. Well, for example, tried to set up a parliament in exile, call it National Assembly. We have set up structures in place, which look like a better strategy than any other group, which structures are functioning. And so that is where you look for it. And then if they are functioning, what other actions have this government of Sako taken that will make you believe that they are in the leadership, they lead others? Who contribute money, not in hiding. President Sako was making that speech in the draft session. Who contribute money to do what? To fund the struggle, to take care of the refugees and the other people, to file and run cases on behalf of Ambazonia. That's a mark of mature leadership. You might not have gained something, but that's a fact. We have accounts that are well known to the world. They can be audited. Maybe they are thieves, but they can be audited. That is a mark of leadership. The struggle has taken us a long way. They have killed our people. They have murdered them in the name of war, call it genocide and war crimes. This is the only group of Sako that has been able to take some action. Maybe it is not yet fruitful, but this is the only group I can say positively and emphatically that successfully filed a case, a complaint against the perpetrators of all these things against us. They filed it at the ICC in Holland. Results there. They have the paperwork, we have the acknowledgement of receipt. That's how governments work. They might not take action, but we've taken the steps that a government is supposed to take. And so it is time for all these groups to rally behind one leader. That one leadership has been demonstrated down the road for the past several years till today. That it is a stupid thing to be calling for another all-Anglophone conference, because we know where we're heading to. An all-Anglophone conference was intended to say, what do they want? The whole world knows what we want. The Pope in his address tells them, address the people. Who are the people? And so if that is accepted, it is time for us, from all walks of life, to rally behind this thing. We have pleaded with our fellow brothers and sisters in different groups. This is the time for the struggle. The time for election will come when we get back home. Those who postulate for presidency, for any post in Ambazonia, will get them on the merit of the vote of the people. We are simply volunteers prosecuting the struggle. We are not prosecuting the struggle to be rewarded with posts in Boya. No. I don't know how many of us will go back to Boya, even if there's independence today, to seek offices there. But we will prosecute the struggle for the benefit of the people back home. We are doing it from, but 90% of the people are back home. And so we have done our best. We have shown this group of government of President Sako in exile has shown the mark of leadership. They have shown the concentration, the centeredness, the strategy how to get to where we are going. And so what that is called is actually important. Again, the call counts. After everything, all of us, all the groups, call them groups, they were all welcoming to the Pope. The Pope coming was a message everybody accepted. The Pope has come. We've heard his message. We are preparing for action. Not us. We are waiting for action. And this action can come from Yaoundé tonight. It can come from London tomorrow. It can come from the Vatican this evening. And so that's what the appeal is meant. I hope I got you right. Over to you.
Is that we are coming to action. You know, when you talked about action from the Pope's visit, there is a report about action from the Pope's visit. So let me not allow you to rush into it yet until we get we get there. But you know, you mentioned about Ambazonians all the way, you know, raising funds for the struggle all along. And so the president coming out now to ask for funds, it's not like Ambazonians are not doing anything. Of course, there has been draft all along all the years, draft where Ambazonians who believe in the struggle have been contributing. They've been sowing seeds, they've been raising funds all these years. And so yes, like I also mentioned, Department for Women Affairs, they've been doing a lot too. But then there is a speech, another speech. You know, this was the communique the president had for the Pope's visit. But there is another president's speech about, you know, the draft on Saturday. Let's get to hear it. Then we'll come back and continue the rest of the reports from there.
Here present, friends of the Ambazonian people, distinguished leaders, sons and daughters of the Midland Zone, and friends of justice, fellow Ambazonians. Today, we are not gathered for an ordinary humanitarian exercise. We are gathered for a moment of decision, a moment that demands clarity of purpose, courage of conviction, and unity of action. This has become the principal ritual of our resistance. We stand here today in the Midland, the heart of our struggle, Manyu, Mezam, Momo, Libialem, to support the federal government's humanitarian endeavors. This zone did not only witness the rise of resistance, it carried it, it sustained it, and it defined it. You have endured longer than the fastest. You have sacrificed more than initially planned. You have refused to disappear like stars in the morning. You have refused to become a spectator in your own march. And let it be clearly understood, what began yesterday must be sustained today and must be finished with us and by us. History does not remember those who merely started a struggle. History remembers those who saw it through, those who shall raise the flag in victory. Fellow Ambazonians, the Pope came and the Pope spoke. Let me begin by acknowledging the recent visit of His Holiness Pope Leo XIV to Bamenda. As I told you before he came, he did not come to Ambazonia to be informed. His coming was decisive. He did not come to manage optics. He did not come to echo power. He came to listen and to speak truth to all. And when he spoke, he did not hide behind a veil of neutrality in the face of glaring injustice against certain Cameroonians. No need to emphasize that some corrupt political bishops of the Catholic Church were disappointed or may have been disappointed, because he said peace cannot be built on silence in the face of injustice.
All right. Barrister, I believe that you listened to the speech on Saturday. You know, President being very diplomatic and saying things as it is. And I want us to also delve into, you know, this president's speech just a little bit, recapping it for those who probably didn't listen to the speech and were not part of the Saturday's draft. But please, you know, as usual, I'm very interested in what, you know, sparked your interest on Saturday. I will always look out for your own highlight of the president's speech.
Well, the president's speech, remember, it was made on the occasion of the Midland draft. And he defined the Midland in such a way that anybody who doesn't know the history or the struggle would capture it from there. What is the Midland? What do you really mean? The Midland, by definition of this government, includes Mezam, it includes Momo, it includes Manyo, and Libialem. Those are the 4 counties that make the Midland. And he said nobody can challenge that. Who can doubt that these are the 4 counties that have borne the blunt, that have carried the flag of the struggle. Is anybody who would doubt that Mbeseha, as we speak, is a hot fire of the revolution? No, nobody can doubt that. Today, everybody is being killed in Bamenda. They have drafted people there. They have brought the French there. They have brought everybody to Bamenda, and the war continues. Is there anyone who will doubt that Manu is where the struggle started? They threw the first bomb in Manu, and then, of course, the thing escalated from there. The story is long and old. You can talk about Cameroun, can talk about the hospital, but it's all in Manu. Is there anyone who will doubt where the BLM fits in this square? Does anybody forget the name Field Marshal of the BLM? Does anyone forget the titles, the fancy, and so on and so forth? Those were inventions for the war. The fancy, Ambazonia, they were weapons created by Field Marshal the King for this war. And of course, Momo. Who can doubt that Momo has borne a big too much? Can we forget about the Guzan massacre? Open firing squads for people in Ambazonia in Guzan because of the struggle, threatening to cut off the heads of fronts and chiefs and so on and so forth, all in Momo. And so this is a big center of the struggle. And he's urging us to draft. Because he says, history does not remember those who quit or those who started. It remembers those who started and ended. If you started in the BLM, Manu, Mbeseha, or Momo, and you quit down the road, you've lost your title. You've lost your position. History will remember those people who carried the journey, who carried this thing to the end. And so, again, this is draft. We are doing open drafting to support the war and anything you can see. To do humanitarian support for the victims of the war. I just mentioned the Women's Department, and again the Pope. The Pope was in Yaoundé, was in Boya, was in Mbeseha, was in Douala. The Pope made a passionate appeal to the authorities in Yaoundé and to the parties in the conflict. I can assure you, without mincing words, that the Women's Department that you have mentioned about did more than any other person could imagine. If the Pope spoke, the Pope got the message directly from the Women's Department. People will doubt it, but I can give you that evidence if you need it. But it's not time to show proof. But I can guarantee you that some of the words that came out of the Pope's mouth were the vision of the Women's Department of the government of Ambazonia in exile. And so we did everything that is worth doing on our human hands to send that message. And now this is where we are. We are in the draft. The president was right, and he's still right. After the Pope, the Midland draft was now a big motivation. And he called on people to do it. And if you see the results of the draft, they are there. They are published everywhere. What we raised is not something you can ignore. Given the fact that people are putting in $10, $2, $1. If they could do that and raise close to $20,000 in one sitting, do you then doubt the leadership of this group? No. If they can do that publicly and raise whatever, $20,000 and put it in a bank account, publicly available to the world and to the critics, you can see the information there. Will you doubt that this is a time for us to come together? Over to you.
All right. Of course. Thank you so much, Barrister. The administration led by President Samuel Sako, they've proven themselves beyond reasonable doubt that they are capable, to lead Ambazonians into the land of Boya. But we'll definitely come back to that as, we get more reports. But moving on, let's get into a little bit of education. As primary school pupils in Akwaya, located in southern Cameroon's Manu County, are still attending classes in buildings without proper roofing, raising fresh concerns about inequality in access to basic education infrastructure. A local resident reacting to the situation described conditions in several schools as shocking, noted that children are forced to learn in exposed environments vulnerable to harsh weather conditions. The question is, how will they even learn? It will surprise you to know that many primary schools in Akwaya are still lacking roofing sheets. People study under these conditions, as you can see in the picture, while in other areas in Mayu, schools even have excess classrooms and toilets constructed by the state. Why would that be? Well, Akwaya, a remote and often hard-to-reach community, has long faced challenges linked to poor infrastructure, limited state presence, and the broader impact of the ongoing Ambazonian war. These factors have contributed to delays in development, particularly in the education sector. Education advocates warns that learning in such conditions not only affects pupils' concentration and performances, but also raises safety and health risk. The situation shows deeply the ongoing disparities in public infrastructure distribution within the same administrative division, fueling broader debate about equity and inclusion in Cameroon's development efforts to the southern Cameroons. With the Pope's visiting, he mentioned that the government is using resources to create war and violence instead of investing in education. All right, at this point, we may just agree with the Pope, because you can see the poor learning conditions of these students, pupils. How sad can it be? I'm just wondering how they will survive. Now, of course, you can see how the bench they sit on is at the same level as the bench that they will write on. Now, aside the fact that they would be affected by either the sun or the rain, imagine them bending all through to write. They're going to be developing waist pain, back pain, and every form of pain. When you look at the images, you'll be wondering how they can even learn. How will they even become leaders of tomorrow when this is the condition of what they can call school? Barrister Mbeseha, I can see you already sober, but you know you have to say something about the situation.
Well, this is like a situation that can suffocate one to death. Because, I mean, you make the story even look better. They are not lacking roofing sheets. They have nothing. If you have nothing, you cannot ask for roofing sheets. They have absolutely nothing. When you see those pictures, you ask yourself whether these people in Akwaya are part of the so-called modern world. Anywhere in the world, in India, in China, in whatever part of the world, you don't expect to find that to be a classroom. They are not sitting on benches. Those are not benches. That's not what we call a bench. These are wooden piece of sticks cut from the bush and put on the ground. And this is Akwaya, you remember? Akwaya is part of Mayu. Mayu is part of the so-called Southwest. They have a senior divisional officer, chef de terre, who lives in Mamfe. And if he has to go to Akwaya as suspect, you have to journey through Nigeria. If there's a migration process, pass through all the Nigerian immigration, then he gets there. But above all, that guy called the prefect and the sous-prefect there, they might not be people of Akwaya. They might not even be people of Ambazonia. The question we ask ourselves is this Akwaya part of the administration in Yaoundé? Of course, they are. If you go closer, you will find somebody who sits in Yaoundé, perhaps permanently, calling himself the MP for Akwaya, member of parliament. You find someone sitting there permanently, calling himself a senator from Akwaya. And so you find them a team of people, political armed robbers, calling themselves politicians from Mayu. that includes Akwaya. Akwaya as a subdivision was created in 1964. 61 years ago. And those are the people of Akwaya. We saw they were following these debates all the time. They attempt to create the post of a prime minister. And which are the names being mentioned? The Mengots. These are all Manyu people. Who are those in parliament passing these laws? The Tabetandos. These are all Manyu people. This is number 2, number 3 in the Senate. So what other description can you have for these people other than calling themselves political robbers? These are people, put them as a team in Manyu, put them as a team in the whole Southwest. That would include everybody from Dion Bute to Mosonge, coming from the constituency they call Southwest. That includes Manyu. And the people of the children of Manyu are going through that. No questions asked. They did not even need to steal the money to go and build the school there. The MP's salary, the senator's salary from there, which is more than $1 million, transformed the money will buy roofing sheets for that place. But nothing is being done. Why should people in Akwaya go through this? We are talking about Akwaya because we are seeing the pictures. The same will repeat itself of other parts of Ambazonia. Is this what we signed up to call independence in 1961? The answer certainly is no. But this is where we find ourselves. I remember one of the causes of this revolution from 2016 was education. And what you are showing there, that is a government school. A school created in Yaoundé by some government text, signed by a government minister with a round stamp there. Call it a government school. And you find an unfortunate citizen also posted there to go and teach. The diploma is nearly in his nails to teach the same children. Given the opportunity, those very children in Akwaya will fly to the moon. Given the opportunity, they will be also the best doctors in the world. Because I remember, I was a teacher, and during our training, there was a book that we read.
You want to say something?
That guided was called Principles of Education. The author of that book is what do you call that guy? I get his name. Now, the author of that book, there's a chapter in that book called Development in Equatorial Africa. And the man says that in Equatorial Africa, that is the underground word, that book is called, it was authored by Farad. Say instead in Equatorial Africa, geniuses die undiscovered. That's simple, that's the great story of Akwaya. A child who would have grown from there to be the best nuclear scientist will never go anywhere because he has not the opportunity. But children don't provide opportunities for themselves. Government provide, administrations provide. A child born in Akwaya did not choose to be born in Akwaya. The best scientist born in Akwaya, the best medical doctor born in Akwaya did not choose to be born there. He was placed there by nature. And human beings had to make that place livable. They have refused to make it livable. If they cannot do that to Akwaya, is there any justification for which who should even listen to what the thing Yaoundé says? That school is created by Yaoundé. The teachers they send there are supposed to be paid by Yaoundé. And of course, women teachers don't even have a salary. And they expect us to overlook those and say, no, it's just a question of human rights. That in 2016, the struggle was about education. We have solved the problem. Why? Simply because they talk about the GCE. But a child in Akwaya will not write the GCE, because for you to write the GCE, you have to prepare and get out to from 5, from 7, upper 6 to call it. This child cannot even get there. What the GCE are talking about? Those people cannot even get there. Why are you talking about French, even teaching them English, French and English? They are helpless. And they represent only a small proportion, a small percentage of the Ambazonian children. I've said here many times before, Ambazonia is not Kumba. Ambazonia is not Victoria. Ambazonia is not Bamenda. Down. The bulk of the Ambazonians are found in Akwaya. They are found in Wabane. They are found in Frukankam. Those are the outskirts of the cities. And good enough. the Pope had a good summary. People who rather than develop their own citizens, they get the money, steal it, borrow some, steal it, to buy weapons, to go and eliminate those people. The war did not have a smaller effect on Akwaya just because they are found. No, the war was there. The war has been there. They have been able to go and implant their big camps there. But they will not go and plant a school there. If they don't have a school building, do you expect people in Akwaya to have even a hospital? Talk less of a dispensary. Absolutely nothing. You, the woman sitting there, if you were born there, you were condemned to death. Because child delivery is nothing worth talking about there. Child upbringing is not a thing for any woman living in that place. And so that is Akwaya. That's symbolic of Ambazonia. That is the reason for which we fight. I must fight to the end of the world. We have started this fight, as Sako says. Those who are mentioned, who are remembered, are not those who abandoned the struggle on the way. Akwaya shall be free. So shall Wabane. So shall Frankanka or any other royal area in Ambazonia. They shall be free. Sooner or later, they'll be free. At least, we believe that the gods can listen to us. If they cannot listen to me and you, they can listen to the Pope. That's our wish. We wish the Pope remains there and go to Akwaya one day himself. Over to you.
All right, Barrister. I think that the situation with that school, you would have to forgive me. They lack everything, not just a leaking roof. All right. Moving on to another report that has to do with school and students. The principal has, alleged that French Cameroon soldiers are defiling students. And so a Catholic school principal has filed a formal complaint alleging that French Cameroon soldiers stationed in Lassen village sexually abused underage students with access reportedly facilitated by a local man. In a later advice to the colonial authorities, Reverend Father Paul Veller, principal of St. Joseph Catholic College, detailed the allegation. He was the person taking the children to the soldiers who were sexually abusing them. This is what the Reverend Father Veller wrote, referring to the alleged facilitator. That's the man you're seeing on your screen. Well, acting in his capacity as head of the institution, Father Veller also recounted a specific incident in which a student disappeared from the school dormitory. He said he witnessed the suspect fleeing with the student on a motorcycle. The student later returned to campus and is reportedly pregnant, according to the complaint. While the allegations have heightened concerns over child protection, accountability, and the conduct of security forces in schools across the war-affected areas of the southern Cameroons, the formal nature of the complaint and the authority of its sources have drawn particular attention from child rights advocates. As of today, French, Cameroon, and its military authorities had not publicly responded to the allegation. Multiple human rights groups have previously criticized security forces for what they describe as a pattern of failing to investigate abuse claims in and around Ambazonia. St. Joseph Catholic College is one of the several church-run institutions that have continued operating regardless of the war in southern Cameroons, where schools have repeatedly been targeted since 2016. The names of the alleged victims and suspects are being withheld to protect the minors involved. Barrister Mbeseha, as you can see, either way, schools are not functioning. It's either they are lacking basic studying amenities, like a classroom, an average classroom. We're not even talking about a good conducive or a conducive classroom. We're talking about a basic classroom, roof, desks, tables, chairs, and what have you. Those that tend to be in a better conducive classroom are being abused. Those who are in a better situation or in a better citadel of learning are being manipulated, are taken out and brought back pregnant, and of course bringing shame and disgrace to the school and to their families. Either way, the school situation in Ambazonia is terrible. But let's get to hear your thoughts.
Well, the problem is so difficult even to analyze because, see, these are children in a Catholic school. It's not just a Catholic school, it's a boarding school. Only privileged children go to boarding schools. I went to a boarding school. I went to a Catholic boarding school. And what does it mean? You see, even in the heart of insecurity, you send your child to a boarding school because the child is kept there. The child sleeps there. The child eats there. There's security for the child. And when it comes to holidays, you come and pick your child from there and go home safe. But if boarding schools are no longer safe, what can we say? And again, back to Ambazonia, southern Cameroun, the missionaries of all walks of life are the ones who run schools. Most of their schools were in the the villages. But they were boarding schools. They made the standard. For example, I'll give a good example here. We have been watching news. There's no road going to Nyasoso in Kupe Maniwoba. But Nyasoso was a powerful place. Own experience. They had a teacher training college there, which was housing boarding schools, boarding students. When they came and took over, they purported to create a secondary school. They had no building, they sent it there. That's Nyasoso, there's no road today there. So, but the missionaries who had opened the school there made it livable. Children who came from Boya, who came from nowhere and went to Nyasoso, were sure of their 3 square meals because they were lost. They were living in boarding places. Even if they walked short the distance, they were sure of their own security. There's no way they will come and harass your child on the way. But back to the story today, these are children in a boarding school. But the larger context is this. We already know, it is already documented, that rape orchestrated or done by the military is so well documented against our children, against our women, against everybody that we can think. They have been doing this since the war started, maybe before the war, but the climax is since the war started. When they find students in a boarding school, for example, when they are girls, they think that they have found a place where they will have their sexual satisfaction without with impunity. And so that is where the case is. But what makes this case more particular is that it's not just a story being told. The principal has made an official complaint to the authorities that be, listing the names of the accused or the suspected people. The names of the victims are all listed there. But up to this point, no action has been taken. What would you expect in a thing like that if there was anything called government? Those people, those B guys, where B or whatever they are, should have been in jail, waiting trial for them to come and defend themselves. But they will not. They're walking free in the streets. But if we went to Cameroun right now and I speak what I'm speaking, I will be in jail just for saying this. Why the rapists, the notorious criminals, walk the streets after being paid with the taxpayers' money? And so do you expect anything to happen? No. Because we already know the story in Cameroun. Under investigation. Oh, the situation is under investigation, which investigation never bring out any results. And so, poor children who don't know where else to hide if the boarding schools are no longer safe. The children who are being abused, they will have those scars on them for the rest of their lives. That's the reason why they protect minor children. They are being raped. Yeah, these children are underaged. And so when you let them with bong bong or everything and go and have sex with them, you are raping them because they are not voluntary. And so this is where it is. Again, this is why we fight. This nonsense must end. Our children must be safe if they are going to school. If something goes wrong with any child in school, the perpetrator must be answerable before the courts. They have to pay for the price of their actions. And if they are not paying, why should we remain in the jungle of a place called justice? As the Pope says, I always call the Pope, that's the recent person who have this thing as. Justice is the justice for the, not justice for the big, should be justice for the small. Those children are toothless. They are armless. And you cannot bring justice to protect them. Where else do you expect justice to come from? They are pregnant. They are alleged to be, some of them are alleged to be pregnant. To give birth at the age of 13, 14, or 15. Yes, their lives are ruined. What of the lives of their would-be children? They are equally ruined. And so, again, what is purported there is symbolic only of what has been going on for the past 10 years. Impunity, having children for sexual pleasure, raping women, even the old ones, to please themselves. And so, again, we don't know what else we can do. It has been reported to the so-called authorities. If they don't take action, there are brothers and sisters who still feel that they belong to something called a government in Yaoundé. Think twice. Over to you.
All right. While they are thinking twice, Barrister, let's get into one of the angles that you wanted to talk on earlier when we started the report tonight. The area of the Pope's visit and what the roadmap would be. You know, many Cameroonians have been asking a simple but important question following the Pope's recent visit. What has actually changed? That's the question. It's a fair concern, if you ask me, in a country where expectations are high and tangible progress is often demanded quickly. But as church leaders are now emphasizing meaningful change, especially in a context as complex as the one in Cameroon, is rarely immediate. It unfolds over time through what I can call deliberate steps and sustained commitment. Well, according to Andrew Nkir, the Archbishop of Bamenda, the Pope's visit should be understood as the beginning of a broader process rather than a one-off event. He explained that the visit has effectively launched a roadmap aimed at fostering long-term peace, reconciliation, and social cohesion across the countries. Central to these efforts is the creation of a special committee tasked with implementing the Pope's recommendations. Well, he says that this body will work closely with local leaders, community stakeholders, and other partners to translate the Pope's message into concrete action. Archbishop Nkir highlighted that committees will use their situation in Bamenda as a case study for how peace-building initiatives can be structured and sustained. Of course, and the choice of Bamenda is significant as one of the epicenters of the Ambazonian War. It represents both the challenges Cameroon face and the potential for meaningful transformation in Ambazonia. By focusing efforts there, the church hopes to develop practical models for dialogue, conflict resolution, and community healing that can later be replicated in other parts of the country. Well, I'm not the one saying this, I'm only analyzing it. Let's get the speech by Bishop Nkir.
For the past 8 years, many of our people have suffered a lot from a situation they did not create. Thousands are either internally displaced or escaped as refugees. Businesses were shut down, and for about 4 years, our children were not allowed to go to school. Children were used as a political bait. Many priests, religious, and bishops of this province have either been harassed, beaten, kidnapped, or even killed in this conflict. Yet, the church continues to carry the gospel as a light of hope among a traumatized people. Many women have been rendered widows, children orphaned, and many people rendered homeless by this crisis. Most Holy Father, today that your feet are standing on the soil of Bamenda, that has drunk the blood of many of our children, we in Bamenda can address ourselves in the messianic words of the prophet Isaiah. A people that walked in darkness has seen a great light. We are happy because in this time of crisis, we see you as a messenger of peace. We see you as an ambassador of reconciliation. We see you as a promoter of justice. We see in you the presence of God Himself among us, who has come to visit His people like the dawn from on high. His blessings bring peace, and His words come like anointing on the wounds of those who are bleeding. With your presence here, Holy Father, I can confidently say, now is the time for peace. Most Holy Father, we shall reap the fruits of your visit for many years to come. And we are confident that the peace you have come to pray for shall return once again to this ecclesiastical province of Bamenda. Can address ourselves in the messianic words of the prophet Isaiah. A people that walked in darkness has seen a great light. We are happy because in this time of crisis, we see you as a messenger of peace. We see you as an ambassador of reconciliation. We see you as a promoter of justice. We see in you the presence of God Himself among us, who has come to visit His people like the dawn from on high. His blessings bring peace, and His words come like anointing on the wounds of those who are bleeding. With your presence here, Holy Father, I can confidently say, now is the time for peace. Most Holy Father, we shall reap the fruits of your visit for many years to come. And we are confident that the peace you have come to pray for shall return once again to this ecclesiastical province of Bamenda.
You see, when the Pope comes to a place, it is an event. But really, that event is not as important as the aftermath of the event. And therefore, the Pope has come and gone. He has given speeches and messages. We have all clapped, we are all happy. What next? That question, what next, is very important for all of us. And I think that in the whole country, we have to sit down to digest that message, all those messages that the Pope brought. And secondly, we have to see what it takes to be able to implement some of the things that he said. I'll give you an example. In Bamenda, he was talking about a time for peace. It is now, not tomorrow. And you discover that we as Bamenda people have to start reflecting concretely on this message. If the time of peace is now, how do we make that now to happen? And so we have to really set up committees to study how to implement these words of the Pope and see how we can make this peace a reality. How do we dialogue with the separatists in the bush? And how do we get the separatists in the bush to be able to see how to dialogue with government? So these are things that we members of civil society and church we have to do to be able to make sure that the words of the Pope don't get wasted.
All right, Barrister, we had to take some retrospect back to the first speech by Bishop Andrew Nkir on the visit of the Pope in Bamenda. And then, of course, after giving such a lengthy speech talking about the war and everything that has happened, people are asking, oh, you guys have talked, speeches upon speeches, what is next? And then he comes up to say, oh, he's thinking that there should be a committee, which is the next video that we played. He comes up to explain that after all of the speeches, there should be a committee, there should be this, there should be that, and he thinks that if the Pope is saying the peace should be now, then the peace should be now. Now, he mentioned a committee should be set up, to be able to have all of the setups for the negotiations that would bring peace. I don't know. Bishop Nkir seems to be very interested in the peace. Of course, everyone should be interested in the peace between southern Cameroons and, of course, the French Cameroon. But at the end of the day, aside the part of interest, let us go into what the situation is. Do you think that his idea or his opinion on creating committees would be important?
No, I think if that's what he thinks, he's got it all wrong. He got the wrong interpretation of the Pope's message. The first question he asked, after the Pope's message, what do we get from the Pope's visit? What has changed? The only thing that has changed, in my opinion, I think I'm right, is the narration, the narrative of what the struggle is all about. The Pope has come to let the world know, and now they will now agree. That is not what he on the terrorism. They are not terrorists, just fighting. There are people who are fighting for some basic rights. So the narrative has changed because the Pope did not say this from the Vatican. He said it in Yaoundé. He talked to Paul Biya directly. Paul Biya is the head of state, who have explained on previous occasions that Paul Biya, if there's nobody in Cameroon who knows about the Ambazonian struggle, what the Ambazonians are complaining about, it is a man called Paul Biya. His person, who that is called there, is one called Paul Biya. Because we are complaining about education. In 1962, when we just joined this group, Paul Biya was the Secretary General in the Ministry of Education. So he knows what education meant to Ambazonians. Down the road, Paul Biya was Secretary General at the presidency when they conducted the referendum and killed southern Cameroon. He cannot say he did not know. Paul Biya was there, the prime minister, when they circumvented succession and changed it from being the president of the House of Assembly, who was St. Mona, and gave it to the prime minister, who was Paul Biya himself. And those are the things we are fighting about. It is Paul Biya who sat in person and took his pen and signed the 1984 decree, returning the Cameroon from United Republic of Cameroon to the Republic of Cameroon. It is same Paul Biya who declared the war on Ambazonia in dated November 2017, I think. So, after talking directly to Paul Biya, the narrative has changed. That's what has changed. The message has been delivered to the principal actors. Political, because we have all said, and everybody agrees, it's a political problem. For a political problem to be solved, the political actors must be aware. They must know their roles. And that is what the background should be. I said, Archbishop Andrew, he said his few things were right, but he made errors. I can just call them errors in most of some of the things that he said. For example, he says that for the past 8 years, the people have suffered for crises that they were not responsible for. That is true. Your father and my mother in the village whose houses were burnt were not responsible for anything. But they are the victims of a war that was not declared by them. The boys and girls and the children who have been killed, they are not responsible for the crisis, which I've just enumerated from 1960. They are not responsible for it. They are just victims of a system that did all this. And so, to that point, the Archbishop is right. But the Archbishop's vision of the problem is misdirected. Where he says, for example, that in the verse he says, well, for 4 years, our children have not been allowed to go to school. When you make public statements, every word counts. It's not true. The children have not gone to school, not because someone refused them. No, allowed means that somebody is sitting there and say, don't go to school. They have not gone to school because of the circumstances of the war. And I've said it in previous occasions. We're sitting here talking on ABC for the government of Ambazonia in exile. We had stated many million times before, as far as the war is concerned and school is concerned, if you feel that you are safe to go to school, go to your school. So we didn't stop anybody from going to school. People packed and ran away, became internally displaced because of the war that they did not declare it itself. The man who declared the war, who fired the first shot, Mr. Pobia, and he did it publicly. He didn't do it in hiding. The man who told the truth about why the war is being fought is Pobia. The civil who said publicly that we had attempted to assimilate these people over the years and we have failed. That's the Pobia, that's the cause of the war. And so, again, the narration, because even the order of what you put in the public statement like this, they count. It is not reconciliation. It does not start with peace, reconciliation, and justice. No. That's not the order of events. If you want to bring peace to Bamenda or nowhere else in the world, you start with justice. When somebody obtains justice, they reconcile that person with the person who had wounded him or her. And when you have obtained peace, you have reconciled with your enemy. When you have obtained justice, you reconcile with your enemy, then peace follows. That's the sequence that events go. And so for the Archbishop to say, well, we'll form committees, he's taking a wrong approach. What committees? What would his committee do? He comes from the BLM. He goes and form a committee. What would the committee do? Would the committee order Pobia to stop fighting? Can that committee order the boys who are defending themselves in the bushes to stop defending themselves? No. So they miss the target. They should say, the Archbishop or nobody interested should be able to say that there are two parties in this struggle. There is the government fighting, called on the voices in the bushes. These are two parties to the conflict. The voices in the bushes have a leadership. The voices in the bushes are soldiers. With their rubber guns, they are also soldiers. But they have a political leadership. The bee that we just mentioned a few minutes ago, and the gendarmes, they are military guys, but they have a political leadership in the name of the government, ministers of defense, the president who is the super minister of defense himself, because the minister of defense is the minister delegate at the presidency in charge of defense. You cannot talk about going to form committees to talk to the voices in the bushes, then you will form committees to talk to the bee. You form committees to talk to the gendarmes and the vigilantes. The vigilantes are part of the fighting, but they have a political leadership that has recruited them to play the role of vigilantes and kill their own enemies. And so if the Archbishop or anybody entering this struggle does not know what to do, I've said this, I don't know whether I can repeat it. The Archbishop, priests and bishops and any other religious people are purely religious people. But if you want to wear a political cap, if you want to enter into a political arena, you must know how to deal with the political fine prints. If you miss it, you miss the whole thing. Which is why, see, talking about the Pope coming to Bamenda. The former leader of the Protestant Church, that's the moderator who is now on retirement, spoke in Bamenda, in the cathedral. And what did he say? He said, in their wisdom, as religious, that form committees to deal with peace. They have been talking to voices in the bushes. They have even gone abroad to talk to their sponsors, and they have not succeeded. And I said, yes, they did that. The Pope took note of that and said, among other things, blessed are the peacemakers. That's in the Bible. But it did not end there. He went further. I mean, this is Pope. Seabed, woe unto those who use religion to promote their political agenda. There's a lot of meaning in those things. These are all religious people who thought that they were making peace. They missed the point that they have been recruited by one of the parties. You cannot make peace when you are part of the other party. They came to say the doctrine of Yaoundé. What was the peace they were trying to make? They were trying to convince the voices in the bushes to lay down their arms and come and join the DDR, which was not to be the starting point. Going forward, what Andrew is saying, they have been trying to convince the Ambazonian fighter and the civil society to stop Ghost Town, which is a symbol of the resistance, without addressing the causes why there's Ghost Town. And so until the bishop and the archbishops and any religious getting involved know how to use the political dimension of the struggle, they will not succeed. And we wish they should. Well, if the Vatican decides to go in, I'm sure they are going to appoint more politically matured clerics, pastors, to handle the thing. Andrew has been a mess politically. It is the very Archbishop Andrew who told us that he was invited to go and attend the Grand National Dialogue for the purpose of bringing peace. And his other bishops, the 5 other bishops with him in the ecclesiastical province, sat and agreed that when you go to this Grand National Dialogue as our representative, plead for a return to the 2-state federation. That's what the church in the ecclesiastical province stands for. This is testimony from Archbishop Andrew. But when he got to the Grand National Dialogue, he didn't even do that. Why? Because a certain Chimokete told him that the Northwest and the Southwest could not live together. And he bought into that. And did not even present the position of his own brothers who were the bishops, who had sent him there, who had gone there to represent him. And we asked the question, if he bought this doctrine from Chief Mokete, and you are a cleric, you are a religious guy, not just being religious, you are the Archbishop of Bamenda. You are not from Bamenda, you're not a Bamenda guy. You are the Archbishop of Bamenda from the Southwest, you are from the BLM. And you are living in Bamenda every day. People are honoring you, coming to you for everything religious. Then what makes you think that people in the Northwest and Southwest cannot live together? Why would you buy into this stupid thing from Chimbokete? And by extension, the Archdiocese they have 6 bishops today. In the Northwest, he is the Archbishop, call it Northwest. The Bishop of Kumbo is from what do you call it? Beacon. That's the Northwest. Fine. But go to the Southwest. The Bishop of Boya is from the Northwest. He is comfortable in Boya. Nobody quarrels with him. Bishop Kumba is from the Northwest. He is comfortable in Kumba. Nobody quarrels with him. And so Andrew might not have known the harm he was doing to his political, to his religious career by wearing this political suit. And so the narration that he's trying to give, he might be thinking that he's going to make a good effort. But I would suggest to him, if he's forming his committees, so be it. I'm sure some of the members of that committee will tell him, this is not the place to start. Form your committee, let the committee liaise with the government and say, Mr. Government, this is the bad truth. The war is there. You're the one financing the war. You have your army that are also dying. The issues raised by the voices in the bushes are political. How do we address these things politically? And then, of course, very importantly, let him know that the voices in the bushes are soldiers, volunteer soldiers, but they also have the political leadership. The army that is fighting the voices in the bushes, they are best soldiers. They have a political leadership. And until you try to bring the political leadership in layers, Whatever thing you want to propose, you're wasting your time. You can convince 2 boys, 3 boys, 10, even 100 to leave and come and go to the DDR. That would not have ended the war. You have seen that experience. People convinced many people, bought some of them with money. They went to the DDR since 2019, 2020. We're 6 years into it. The war has not ended. And so we only plead with them that, you see, all those public statements are important. The order of words is also very important. You don't start with peace, 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 peace. Then you say the Pope is the advocate for justice. The Pope is the advocate for reconciliation. That is true. But the Pope would rather start with justice. When justice is obtained, it will reconcile the people. When the people are reconciled, peace comes in immediately. Over to you.
Barrister, the church officials actually stressed that the Pope's message was not just symbolic, that he laid out a vision grounded in justice, reconciliation, and grassroots engagement. So from the Pope's speech, he actually gave justice as the first, then reconciliation and engagement. So the newly formed committee, if they eventually agree, is expected to outline clear strategies, timelines, and measurable outcome, ensuring that the momentum generated by the visit is not a loss. This is what people are saying, that okay, if Bishop Andrew Nkia is saying there should be a committee that would overlook all of this. Well, for many observers, this marks a shift from rhetoric to a structured action, while skepticism remains among some criticisms that others see this as a promising step towards addressing the long-standing divisions. Ultimately, as Archbishop Nkia noted, change is a process. The Pope's visit may not have delivered instant results, but it has set in motion a series of initiatives that could, over time, reshape the social, political landscape of the Cameroons. And Barrister Mbeseha, lastly, before we allow you to take your leave tonight, you are saying that before the committee is set up, are you saying that justice should be served, or should the committee, when the committee is set up, should know that the first thing that should be on their plate should be justice before reconciliation and before peace? What are your options?
I'm not saying that they should not form the committee. They can form the committee. The committees are important. But what I'm saying, and I'm emphasizing here, justice, peace, reconciliation, they will be part of it. But the way to get it, if you form a committee, the first thing the committee should do is to work out a strategy on how to bring in the political leadership of the fighting parties, the government, and the Ambazonian political leadership. Once, because you cannot create a timeline without the consent of the fighters. Without the fighters here, we mean their commanders. Their commanders are the political leaders. You cannot say in Bamenda Cathedral and make something in the village, call it Kwakwa or whatever village in Ambazonia, and say there's a timeline for people to stop it. They will not stop without the involvement of the political leadership. So let the committee go there. Their best approach, I would suggest, is okay, this is a committee. We are going to the government. We are going to the leadership of the Ambazonian fighters and asking the question. The Pope is come and gone. He has recommended peace. He has recommended justice. He has recommended reconciliation. Let us jointly put a program on how to work out these things. If they do that, they might have started very well. And I'm sure if they did that, one of the parties, which is the political leadership of the voices in the bushes, will tell them that good job. But it is good for us to start by getting to the truth. What happened that we went to war? What happened that we were fighting? Simple story. And they say, well, this is my reasons. And then we say, well, this reason is not good or it's good. Oh, you boys were very wrong when they were killing you. Or you had the right to defend yourself. How do we move forward going on now? That's where they start. Because if you don't touch the root causes of the problem, you will not be able to fix the problem. The root causes of the problem are the elephant in the house, which nobody wants to talk about. You want to stop ghost towns, for example, without finding why people are doing ghost town. You are wasting your time. You want to say children should go to school without finding out what made the warder stop them from going to school. I can guarantee you, as we speak today, some of the very things they call schools, some of those buildings, they have been transformed into military camps. The militaries live there. I can guarantee you, some of the schools that the bishop is complaining about, they're finally closed because the government withdrew their teachers formally from those places. The Minister of Higher and Secondary Education said, for example, publicly, that if you are in the war zone and you felt not safe, withdraw from there yourself and save your lives. Why? Because there's war. So unless they go this basic, their efforts might be all in vain. But he's right to say the results will take a long time in coming. Many years down the road. If we address the root cause of the problem, that will be solving a 65-year-old problem forever. Will it be easy? It's not easy. It is not easy to address the elephant in the house, especially when you are coming from the position of weakness. The bishops and the archbishops are coming from a position of weakness. Because as he rightly says, some of them have also been killed. Some have died. And so again, this is my view. It is personal, but I think it can help them. Well done, Bishop. Welcome to the Pope. The Pope did not decree something for you to go implement. So to see how you are going to implement the Pope's wishes now. He did not decree something for us to go implement. The Pope highlighted issues that should be discussed. Insecurity should be discussed in full. The reason why people are fighting should be discussed in full. Dialogue should be discussed in full. What you are dialoguing over what? People should understand this. Because this will buy into the narrative of government and say, well, government is all strong. Government is the one who is allowed to carry arms. So you can carry arms, they can kill you. You don't defend yourself. That's not how you solve the problem. If you are not allowed to own a gun, and somebody came with a gun shooting you, and you had a spear, you will defend yourself with a spear. You had a knife, you defend yourself with a knife. Nobody has ever been recommended to lie down and let their enemy cut off your throat. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Barrister. It's been a night of in-depth analysis and setting the foundation for the week's structure when it comes to news. This is where we would allow you to go, because we are sure that tomorrow we'll definitely have you as we bring out new reports emanating from the home front to the front burner while you dissect from your wealth of knowledge. Thank you so much for being part of tonight's Undaunted.
Thank you for having me. Good night to all of you.
All right, Barrister. Now, when we return from the break, we'll head into Africa, where the stakes are high at the UN as Macky Sall joins race for global leadership amidst all of the tensions arising in Africa. Former Senegalese President Macky Sall is among 4 candidates set to audition this week for the position of Secretary General of the United Nations, as the global body prepares to replace ongoing Chief Antonio Guterres at the end of the term. Sall, the only African candidate in the race, will present his vision before representatives of the UN's 193 member states during a series of question and answer sessions at the General Assembly. His candidacy comes at a time of heightened global tension and growing scrutiny over the effectiveness of the UN in addressing international conflict. The audition process begins with Michelle Bachelet, followed by Argentine's nuclear chief Rafael Mariano Grossi. Rebecca Girspam is also scheduled to appear before Sall takes the stage later in the week. Analysts note that this year's features fewer candidates compared to 2016, reflecting a more cautious political climate. According to observers, the deeply divided global landscape marked by ongoing war in Ukraine, Gaza, and Iran has limited the willingness of potential candidates to enter the contest. The selection process remains heavily influenced by the UN Security Council, where 5 permanent members hold veto power, making diplomatic alignment a critical factor in determining the effectual winner. Despite traditional expectations that the role rotates by region, potentially favoring Latin America this cycle, Sal's candidacy signals Africa's continued interest in leading the global institution. At least he has made a try. As the auditions proceed, candidates are expected to outline their approaches to global security, international reform, and restoring confidence in the United Nations' role in maintaining international peace and cooperation. When we return right after the break, we'll get into the globe, where Donald Trump has issued Iran ultimatum as war fallout hits Africa. As the conflict in the Middle East deepens, global uncertainty continues to rise, with Donald Trump once again delaying a critical ultimatum to Iran. The U.S. leader has given Iranian authorities until Tuesday, 8 p.m. Washington time, to reopen the strategic Strait of Hormuz, warning that failure to comply could result in targeted strikes on key infrastructure, including bridges and nuclear facilities. The ongoing blockade of the crucial maritime corridor, through which significant portion of the world's oil supply passes, has begun to trigger economic ripple effects far beyond the region. In Zambia, authorities have declared the fuel supply situation a national emergency, highlighting the widening global impact of the war. Amid escalating tension, Pope Leo XIV has called for restraint and dialogue. Speaking during Easter Mass, the pontiff urged world leaders to choose peace over conflict, emphasizing the urgent need for de-escalation, and at least one that prolonged disruption in the Strait of Hormuz could send global oil prices soaring, deepening inflationary pressure and strain already fragile economies, particularly across developing nations. There are also growing concern that any military escalation between the United States and Iran could draw in other regional powers, further widening the conflict and complicating international diplomatic efforts. Well, that's it for tonight's Undaunted, bringing into the news untold stories. But before we go, let's take a look at the stories that made it to tonight's headlines. Well, tonight on Undaunted, we told you that a cry for justice and survival has been heard as President Sako urges for unity and global action for Pope's visit in Bamenda. Tonight, we told you that Pupils in Akwaya still lack basic amenities when it comes to education. While a principal alleges French Cameroon soldiers abuse students in Ambazonia, files formal complaint, while Pope's visit sparks long-term peace roadmap for the Cameroons. Tonight we told you that the stakes are high at the UN as Macky Sall joins race for global leadership amidst all of the tension. While on the global scene, we told you that Donald Trump has issued Iran's ultimatum as war fallout hits Africa. That's it for tonight on Undaunted. Bringing it to the news untold stories. On behalf of Barrister Mbeseha and a team of technicians behind tonight's production, is good night and God bless you.